Hi everyone, this is Bob Long, LADC, great state of Oklahoma, coming at you with a little video on manipulation. Most addicts have learned some survival skills, and we call those manipulation sometimes, okay? And if you ask a client, sorry, if you ask a client, how do you manipulate? Chances are they're not going to, they're not aware that they're manipulating. They're probably going to say, I don't manipulate anybody. Fantastic. That tells me that they're not aware of their behaviors. Case in point, had one client who was somewhat young. She's probably around 25, and here I am, age 61 right now. And so she came in. She made a request for visitation for someone to come up here. And we won't get into the details on it, but it was against our policy to allow this person in this building because of legal background stuff that he had. Okay, fantastic. And I said, I'm sorry, ran the background checks. The answer is no. And so she got very, very pouty, and she pleaded with me. Then that didn't last very long. Then it escalated into screaming and yelling at me. And then from there, it just, she stomped out of my office, slamming my door. And I sat there for a second. I said, okay, this is how she manipulates her mom into getting her way. That's what I'm thinking. About an hour later, she comes back in, and this time she asked me in this little girly voice, like a 14, 15-year-old girl voice, which is not her normal voice. And then she starts crying. When I said, no, I'm sorry, the policy is a policy. We're not going to make an exception in this case. The answer is no. And she started crying. And I went like, and then she left. And it was like walking out in slow motion. And, you know, pretty good actress. Most addicts are pretty good actors and actresses. So anyway, at this point, I'm thinking, okay, this is how she manipulates her dad. A couple hours later, after lunch, she comes back in, and this time, she actually is trying to flirt with me. I'm 40 years older than she is, at least, and there she is trying to flirt with me. And I'm thinking, this is how she manipulates her boyfriend. And I said, no, sorry, not happening. The policy is a policy, and we're not going to make an exception. So the next day, we have an individual session, and she comes in, we sit down, and I said, so let's talk about manipulation. And she said, I don't manipulate anybody. Again, total lack of awareness of her own behaviors. So at this point, what happens is I go like, well, let's talk about yesterday. And we have a discussion. And she was able to put two and two together, and she said, okay, yes, that is how I get my way with my mother. I did have it wrong, though, about the pouting and the tears. That's how she manipulates her boyfriend. That's the only thing I had wrong. Okay, so anyway, she gained some insight into her and awareness into her behaviors that she learned. I don't know when she learned them, but probably growing up, she learned that throwing a tantrum got her way. But when that didn't work with me, she tried a different tactic. None of them worked. So if you have a loved one who has been manipulating you in some way, you're going to have to recognize that's manipulation. It's probably being done unconsciously, and you have to try to not let them gaslight you, okay? Gaslighting is a whole other video, okay? But manipulation, if you have strong boundaries, you're not going to be manipulated. Now, it may be rough. Now, I've had clients that say, I'm just going to leave out of here, and they're really mad. I'm going to leave out of here, and I'm going to jam a needle in my arm and just overdose. Is that what you want? No, obviously not. And I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. Let's sit down and figure out a compromise. Let's figure out some solution. Let's figure out a way that we can work around this. This is a temporary thing that, whatever it is, it's a temporary thing. But you have got to, you can't let people continuously manipulate you, because once you start, it's hard to stop. You have to be able to set boundaries. That's the critical key component. A person once asked me if they could borrow 50 bucks. The answer is no. Okay, I love that word no. In English or Spanish, love that word, no. I can even say it in Russian, нет, okay? Or in German, nein. I love that word. It's a great word. You should adopt that word, okay? It's a great word. This person was in another town, another city here in Oklahoma, about an hour down the road, and they wanted me to loan them 50 bucks. And the answer was no. That's probably going to be used for drugs. And I said no. And actually what I said first was, because this is how you teach a boundary. I said, I'm so sorry to hear that you're having financial difficulties. I'll be glad to loan you the $50. Give me your address and I'll put a check in the mail and I'll send it to you. Well, if they wanted it for drugs, they were not going to wait. This is a Friday. They were not going to wait till Monday or Tuesday and then have to go try to cash a check. Okay, and I knew that. And they said, well, don't you have a green dot or some other 21st century way of transferring money? I said, no, I do not. I'm old. Now I do have a PayPal account. I'm not that old. I do have a PayPal account, but I wasn't going to use it. Okay, it has to be on my terms. So a little bit later, she came back and said, okay, here's my address. I said, great. And I said, this is a loan. Can you tell me when you're going to pay it back? I'm setting my expectation that this is going to be paid back. That's my expectation. If I didn't set that expectation, I'm never going to see that money again. Comes back a little bit later, this is all text messaging, and said, oh, never mind. I figured it out. I said, I'm glad you got it figured out. Have a great weekend. Boom, that was the end of it. So I didn't have to say no in that situation. I was willing to make that offer on my terms. Okay, some of you are out there saying, well, what if she would have said, sure, I can pay you back Friday? I'll say, okay, well, it's a loan. It's going to be about 5% interest. Let me tell you what that's going to be. I would have kept going until that person said, no, never mind. And that's how you set a boundary. A boundary, that's another video altogether. This is the one about manipulation, okay? So if you find yourself constantly being manipulated, adopt and learn the word no, okay? Have a great life, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.